Good afternoon. It is now afternoon, isn't it? I think, yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome to what I hope will be a interesting and inspiring session. For anybody who's online watching this, you're very welcome as well. And I think the next 30 minutes will hopefully prove to be useful for you, and again, hopefully a bit inspirational as well. I've been involved in the Tech for Good Summit for the last few years. And in fact, actually, just this month, I've joined the board of Scottish Tech for Good Alliance. So I'm looking forward personally to being involved in something that I think is very, very important, very special, and a real force for good, I think. And we've heard that. I mean, just even this morning's sessions, obviously, I think, echo that and show just how important this whole initiative, movement, which was the word that seemed to be used a lot this morning. So just how important that is. Just by way of a quick introduction, my name is Raymond O'Hare. I spent most of my career in the technology industry, working for probably some of the bigger names and the bigger players in the industry and the sector. And included in that, obviously, was the Microsoft Corporation, where I worked for about 13 years. And for the last 5 of that, as the company's director here in Scotland. I've also worked as an advisor and an exec with a number of high-growth startup tech business as well, obviously, and spent a couple of years working in the third sector as an interim CIO for Enable Group. So interesting sort of variation of things, but enough about me. We have a really interesting panel here with us today, and we're going to hear a bit more about them, and about what they're doing actually in a second. Just to say who they are initially, obviously, just on my left here, we've got Robert Leishman from PwC. We have Krishang Patney and Campbell, both from Barclays. We should have had also Andrea Ward here today from Pets at Home. Unfortunately, Andrea is ill and has not been able to travel from Manchester or wherever it was she was coming from. So we've got a nice tight group, obviously, so we'll be able to really pick their brains and really get into the heart of what they're doing. Now, each of these panel members has obviously been involved and is involved in volunteering or in managing the volunteering situation within the companies that they work for, and how they engage, obviously, with the Tech for Good Alliance. And that's really important. And we've talked a lot in previous Tech for Good summits about the benefits of this whole initiative, this whole movement, to the charities and the third sector organisations who benefit from it. And that's really important. Obviously, we've talked about how the companies that you work for, that PwC's, the Barclays, etc., how they benefit from actually allowing the people and allowing the teams to sort of be involved in these things. This session is much more about what do the individuals get from this? What's made this really good and enjoyable and makes them want to actually play in this and be part of this? And that's what we're going to delve into a bit more this morning. So we're going to, straight into that. So without any further ado, I think we'll start. And can I just ask each of you initially just to give us a little bit about what your role is actually in the company, how you kind of come to be involved with the Tech for Good Alliance. Robert, do you want to kick off on that?
Yeah, thanks so much. Robert Leishman, as we said earlier, I work for PwC. I've been there for around about a year and a half now. I work in our cloud and data engineering team, so it's a relatively new team that's been set up. Traditionally, you potentially think of PwC as being, a large auditing firm or a large, accountancy firm, that sort of thing. Over the last few years, they've tried to make a change into not just advising you how to, perform your operations in the cloud and that sort of stuff, but to actually being able to work with you to do that. So I moved over to that team about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, I was at Tesco Bank, but I believe I'm now a member of the Barclays family here. I ran their cloud platforms, so AWS and Azure platforms, and their data center as well. So all of their sort of operations were hosted on the cloud platforms. With the Tech for Good Alliance, last year I attended the summit. So I came along as, I was asked by one of our directors to come along and represent PwC. As Alistair mentioned earlier on, they contacted PwC in, summer 2022, about becoming a member and that sort of stuff. So I came along to the summit last year, myself and a colleague, Dan Ridge, and we were just blown away with what we seen. As Alistair mentioned earlier on in his chat, volunteering for me before was going and painting a wall, going out and doing something in a garden or helping old folks home or something like that. I never really thought I could use the skills that I have or of a master of my career to go make a difference for people. I'm not really sure how much I'm allowed to talk about what we did because I don't want Kirsty to come and kind of tackle me. But after the Tech for Good Summit last year, we approached Alistair and Kirsty and said, what can we do? We want to do a sort of pilot program to see, how does this work for us? How can we do it? And then obviously that progressed into the Soundscape program, which again I think it's got its own section later on, which you'll have to listen to me talk again. I think I won that one as well, so I'll be back. And yeah, so that's how we kind of got into it, and it was a really rewarding day for myself and the folks that put their time into it. I think we ended up spanning it over 2 or 3 days to get to the place where we got to with it. From then on, we've now joined the Tech for Good Alliance officially. We've got a project ongoing just now with Seascape around some of their... Oh, there's Leslie there. Leslie, good to see you. Stuart as well. Nice Stuart's from here. We've got a project ongoing with them just now around one working system. And then, as Alistair mentioned earlier, we sort of went bold for our next One Firm One Day. We've launched 3 projects. We've got 3 sort of main hubs: Edinburgh, Manchester, and London, and we're going for a project in each of those. So yeah, looking forward to that, and yeah, that's kind of my story as to how I became involved.
It's great, Robert. Thank you for that, Krishan.
Thank you. So for us at least, I'm a part of wealth management and as a software engineer, and essentially a group of us saw this opportunity come up via Anne, basically, where it's a PI program I think we were in. So joined Scottish Tech Army via that essentially, and we were part of a project called Little Scotland. I'm not sure anyone from Little Scotland is here, but a part of us volunteering are here today, so hi guys. And essentially when we joined this project, we were kind of given a prompt, well not a prompt, but given a time scale that we have about 6 months to kind of deliver on what the project product owner, I guess, or like the actual owner of the charity wants. And they kind of had an idea, and we kind of stepped in at a step where the project was already ongoing and we've just joined in. So kind of going to deliver on what was already there and kind of learn from what we had on an ongoing project essentially. So yeah, that's kind of where we joined into Scottish Tech Army essentially. But yeah, I'll let you go.
Good, yeah, Alan, and good to hear from this. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Anne Campbell, and I'm the people lead for private banking wealth management here in Barclays. That's around about 1,000 people. Of that, we have about 500 here in Glasgow, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to present this opportunity to our technologists to be able to support. I should say not just our technologists, but also our change delivery teams, just to make sure that the necessary support was there for the delivery of the projects. And what we were wanting to do was really open up, as Robert was saying, the volunteering away from the local community coming to us to ask for a piece of gardening to be done. Typically, it was support for local primary schools that we had. And moving to the skilled volunteering is seems to be a no-brainer, really, because we want to tap into the skills that we have here in Glasgow and give those opportunities of being able to do what you can't do in the lockdown environment that we have in Sharpies. I think that's something that we've had a lot of feedback on in terms of the necessary securities that we have within the company are quite restrictive for that entrepreneurial way of looking at how to do some activity. So it's working with the Scottish Tech Army since, again, 2022, Alistair, I think you'd reached out. And it was a slow process, aggravatingly slow process for us to get signed up because of all the approvals and so on that we need. But ultimately, it was recognised that it was such a useful way for us to leverage what we are able to provide through the organisation of the Tech for Good, it just makes it much easier for us to get our volunteering set up and have that support from them.
Right. I mean, just carrying on from that, and I mean, what you share with us what you said, real benefits, enjoyment side. So for you and so the rest of the team, Barclays who are involved in this, what are the things that you really like about this, inspires them to want to do it, to keep doing it?
Absolutely. It's that from the very first pilot that we did with lower impact living, it was that ability for people to take on things that they wouldn't cover in their day job, really expand in terms of their knowledge of the app delivery softwares that are out there, and being able to just use all of that in a non Barclays corporate way. And what was really valuable for us is how that then knowledge you can bring back to your day job, and just being able to say, well, challenge how we're doing things from the legacy setups that we have. Krishang, I'm not sure if...
I think I would agree on that. I think whilst we're quite lucky with our Greenfield project, essentially within Barclays being not the legacy, but then you can still see how some of the work in Scottish Tech Army and also lower impact living was very brand new to us. So a lot of the tools that we use, such as Amplify, kind of let you deliver in a much quicker way. So you just link your code base to it and it lets you deliver directly in there, whereas on Barclays you have to go through all these different hoops to just even deliver into a prod environment, for example. So kind of that quick feedback was really cool as well. But then also being able to go away from your laptops at work and just kind of use your own work laptops to build whatever you need. So like our project was mainly in Node and kind of using a different framework that wouldn't be a lot of Barclays on the day-to-day. So just as a tech standpoint, that was quite cool to see. But then also I took on the product owner role within the project itself. So kind of doing both at the same time was pretty fun to see as well, because within Barclays, I'll stay as a software engineer and wouldn't really be able to kind of do what a product owner does on their day-to-day, talk to a client, talk to the business, and kind of see what the business wants and whatnot. So that was pretty fun.
Sure. I think one of the key challenges we have is time, just having that commitment. So we had the team work for 3 months. It was an afternoon a week.
Every Wednesday we kind of left our work laptops and just went into a room and worked together on this project. Yep.
Yeah, and that's fantastic when it's possible. The challenges in the changing environment that we have at work is being able to sustain that commitment. Robert, I'm not sure if that's a similar model to how you were operating.
Yeah, I mean, it very much is. I mean, the projects that we've done so far have been very much a day to deliver something, or maybe a couple of days. I think having that sustained, being able to work on something for 6 months, it's not something that we've done as yet. And I do think that is where it becomes challenging. Like I say, getting sign off to go and do 1 or 2 days of volunteering is, it's something that can be done, but it is quite challenging to see how do you deliver over 6 months. And to be fair, now that we are obviously like official members of Tech for Good, I'm looking to see if that's something we can do, because there's so many benefits of it. And one of the things which I really took from the volunteering that I've done so far is being able to actually speak to people that the work that I'm doing will impact. With Soundscape, when we did the initial calls on that, there were users of the app in the call. With some of the stuff on Seascape I'm doing just now, speaking to Leslie and some of the folks that'll be using that. It's massive, working for PwC, you maybe don't get to speak to or see the end goal of your work. Where I worked at the bank, it was, again, very similar. You didn't go in a call with people that were using the banking app to ask how they were getting on with it. So being able to see that and see the actual real world impact of what you're doing is a massive thing for me. Yeah.
I mean, roughly speaking, what percentage of both your organisations would actually be involved in the volunteering? High percentage of people want to get involved, or is it sort of still in its infancy and starting to grow?
I mean, I think for us, we've started this as a sort of, I would probably say, an incubator project within our cloud and data engineering space. So we've got 160 employees, I think, ranging from cloud engineers to full stack developers to product owners, project managers, all of that sort of stuff. And we sort of driven the alliance or the membership of the Tech for Good Alliance. But as we go through One Firm One Day this year, we're expanding that out. So we're looking at our Edinburgh office and, get everybody involved, sign up. Same in Manchester and London to try and expand it out a little bit. And hopefully, as we get through these projects and build on what we're doing, coming and speaking about it today is a different way of getting it out there that that's what we're doing. And like I say, hopefully want to drive up that involvement, because PwC are very generous in what they give. I think you get 5 or 6 volunteering days a year, which is quite really good in that arena. So getting people to use those and and getting involved in projects is we just want to try and grow that.
But is it the same kind of situation back, please? And
yeah, and we were in that same reliance on a kind of an organic rollout of what we were wanting to present as opportunities. So as Robert said, for us it was within the department first, but as we're opening out to all of the campus through our niftily named Technology Advisory Council, which is a technologist speak for everyone who works in technology in Glasgow. It's just making sure that we have that understanding of the commitment, and making sure that where we're looking at alternatives to the perhaps 3-month commitment, Robert and I were talking about a joint hackathon that we could do for making the availability of a day or 2 days, just to be able to get that, tap into that skill pool where they don't have that ability just to give the day job the.
I mean, I think the idea of kind of collaboration between some of the big organisations is pretty interesting as well, actually, and could lead to some, because I think it's one of the biggest challenges. When you look at the individual Tech Army volunteers, that's their choice in their personal time as to how much or how little time they can actually give. You've got certain restrictions and certain rules that you have to play with within the big organisations, albeit welcome and do what you do anyway. But I think it's a challenge against how you balance that.
It's about
fear that you get, enough to make an impact and finish a job type thing with the kind of limited resources that you can apply to it.
We were actually in a really positive position that we weren't able to ultimately get together for the Firm Day. What's it called, Robert?
Oh, One Firm One Day.
One Firm One Day. Because we're doing a hackathon push internally in Barclays with our CEO Venkat coming to Glasgow in May. So it's a lovely problem to have. We've got too many plates spinning for us to have done at this time. But what we were looking at, I think, in terms of that future-proofing, was if we had a hackathon where we had outputs that would then lead to a longer, more sustainable project, then that would be something we'd be looking at as a model for the future.
Just in terms of, you're involved, you've been involved in these projects, and obviously you'd be surrounded by colleagues who maybe are not involved in this at the moment, actually. Do they kind of react well to what your experience has been so far, and do you get a chance to kind of motivate them a little bit towards this, or how does that work?
Action, yeah. So get this them right here. That's nice. People who weren't able to kind of volunteer because it was just pilot, so there's about maybe 12 people, I think, who actually did the projects. A lot of people who weren't able to volunteer didn't even know the email existed that was sent out earlier in the year. They kind of messaged me afterwards going like, hey, how do I get involved with this? And there's quite a few messages, and I was just like, you can go talk to Anne, basically. So I think right outside the emails and stuff was sent out, there was more interest as well that came up. And then kind of being able to showcase what we worked on, like Derek's monthly meeting kind of showcases, he's gone on this panel, he's kind of worked on the Scottish Tech Army stuff, and just all of that kind of gives up more hope to people wanting to volunteer through their technology skills, because that's something that's not really done in a lot of places where you can kind of volunteer on a project with all you can code, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of interest within that itself with a lot of the colleagues that I've had come up to me.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk this morning as well. In fact, the last session for the volunteers were also talking about the fact that the opportunities to try out stuff in a safe environment, you're not maybe restricted by some of the serious security things you have to pay attention to within your own corporations. Is that a real incentive? Do you feel is that something that excites technologists and the people who will get involved in these volunteering?
I think definitely, because you can take risks and you can kind of decide the direction that you want. So it can be kind of an experimental framework that you use, for example, because while it'll run, it won't cause like that many security issues. Like, for example, within the bank, if you were to go something experimental, they wouldn't really enjoy that, I think. But whereas outside, you can kind of use that because, while it's open source, it's going to have engines in the end. It won't be malware. So, but just that's a good different approach within the bank and outside of the bank. So,
yeah, Robert, the same in PwC.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for me is more around, and I'll probably focus more on our junior members of staff. So, what we would call our senior associates, coming in and just starting out their careers. Working on projects like this gives them the ability to go and maybe, like I say, try a different technology. I think one of the projects we looked at was based in Azure. Two of the engineers that worked on that had never done anything in Azure before that. They didn't have a project coming up that was Azure, but because they were going, that was what the Tech for Good project was. That was what they sort of went and learned and, increased their skills in that. They can start to do a little bit of project management, a little bit of, whatever they may take their fancy, and it'll allow them to grow their skills in that area. Whereas if they were a member of a project team, within PwC, within Barclays, there's probably going to be a structure, a hierarchy of people that will be doing that sort of stuff. You probably bring in, get a project manager to deal with that. You probably bring in some PMO folks and some, architects and that sort of stuff. Whereas, the freedom that you would get in one of the Tech for Good projects allows you to perform other roles that you might not, have done before. And you can use guidance from people. You could go and architect a solution and then ask, is this the best way to do it? Then I've came up with that. I think that's a really freeing part for me, is it allows people to grow. Like we said, without the restrictions, without that sort of, deadlines and governance and that sort of stuff. They'd have to maybe try and meet before. It gives them a little bit of freedom to,
Just really did.
No, if then it's just what we wanted to choose as the date, which spend it scaling up. That's what debating that, isn't it? Yeah, it's the thing where like not really download what we wanted to. Can we just extend it a little bit? And that was pretty nice.
Yeah. The thing as well is dealing with clients. Speaking to like Leslie on some of the Seascape stuff. I'm picking on you, Leslie, just because you're sitting in the corner there and smiling. But you could get some of the more junior members of staff, talking to the customers and clients, because that is a more informal, arrangement. So it's not maybe as high pressure as it could be in some other situations. So it does allow them to gain that experience as well.
Yeah. And as the head of people for one of the key areas of the bank, what is this? Does this actually have a real impact in terms of having a program like this, which should encourage your staff to go into? What does it do for the bank?
Yeah, it's incredible. Not just for the actual delivery of the app that the team was able to do, but even something like this. So getting Krishang to present when we were doing the presentations to the charities themselves, we had a fantastic session with this interaction, and that's something that Krishang would not necessarily get access to. The day-to-day job. So this gives benefits to us from the support from a more kind of management perspective, and just getting that access to opportunities to talk and present. And this is something that we benefit from, because we're always trying to encourage that in terms of the collaboration that we have within the teams, and just getting that opportunity. I'm hoping, Krishang, you can keep me right here. But
Lisa Shine to come in at any point, actually, I contradict if we want it.
But just having that experience and building on that young in your career, and being able to take that on is really terrific.
Yeah, definitely. Even like doing this panel, this is my first ever panel kind of joining. So it's very good kind of environment to do everything in, and then also like kind of be able to talk about what you've done is kind of gives you the proud feeling that you've kind of joined this team and kind of worked with everything.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned something earlier about being able to have a junior person do like a product owner role. So that's exactly what I did kind of. And then we had like a few senior engineers in our team as well, and they kind of took the lower roles, essentially like a dev, and let us kind of enjoy the fruit of benefit that we would get from this, basically.
You could tell them what to do.
Yeah, literally, that was quite fun.
That's a great. See that? I'd say that really is. Gary, can I ask you, each of you, like if you were, if you're talking to whether it's in your organisation or to this audience or to the online audience, if there's one thing about this whole concept and this whole movement, if you like, that you really like and that you do it because of, what would that be, Robert? I put you on the spot.
Is that always it? Trying to stop that one. I would say a sense of purpose is probably what I would say. I mean, I think when we were doing the soundscape work, I was like, I'll probably tell a story later on as well, but I was like lying on the sofa watching the football, trying to get the app to work. And it took me ages to get it going, but as soon as it launched on my screen and I could see it working, I was like, yes. My wife's sticking her head through the door as someone scored. I was like, no, I have to sort this thing out. And see just like that sense of purpose and knowing that because I've managed to get that working, it takes us forward and it's then going to grow into, what it's grown to now. It was just like, that sense of purpose of getting that. But in knowing that it's going to...
How many times have you done that in the day job?
There's been a few of you, but it's just one of those ones that was after, as I mentioned earlier on, having the calls with users of the app and, you could see that they were going to go away and what it meant to people to have it continue, and knowing that getting that working was something that's potentially going to directly impact someone's life that was my sort of sense of purpose for it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that, and also like customer feedback, because that's something you won't get in your day-to-day job when you're like kind of working in a back environment or back office essentially. So being able to talk to the client itself, this was Scotland, and seeing how our app would kind of improve the community around us, mainly with like recycling and so on, was pretty important for me, because on the day-to-day job you don't really get that anymore because you're not working with the client directly anymore, so you're kind of working for the business and so on. So just that was really good for me, essentially.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's so important. I think we sometimes forget, obviously, in terms of the day jobs, because everything becomes so process-driven and so structured, if you like, that sort of almost enjoyment and that kind of buzz that you get from the kind of the personal connection and the seeing the difference that's been made, the impact is so important. So motivation, I think, for everybody actually. And your point of view?
Absolutely. So everything that we do in our day job is client-centric. So everything that we're trying to achieve in automation and digitization and trying to make the processes for that end customer as positive as possible is replicated, I think, when we're looking at, for instance, speaking with the Bernardo's team, who really had a transformative journey in terms of what they were actually asking for. They didn't know what what improvements that could be made, and being able to educate and support them. And it's very important for us, I think, going right back to the origins of the Scottish Tech Army, recognising that for charities, if they've got money, they don't spend it on tech, they spend it on the people they're trying to support. And just having that ability for drawing into the incredible skills and expertise of our colleagues really turns that around.
Yeah, good. But thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the session. Is this? I have to pay huge compliment to the three of you as well, because obviously we were a person down on the panel, and like that sort of shares the load somewhat. But to be honest, you've all given some incredibly, really strong information, great stuff, some motivational stuff as well. So thank you all for sharing that with the group. I hope it's been useful for you and for all of you online as well.